Folks, a special edition of the Fairfax Sports Report. Here tonight, March 7th, we're live, and we're going to give you folks at home the chance to call in and tell us exactly what you think of us. Have we said something on one of the last episodes that you may not have liked or disagreed with? Or do you agree with us? You're going to get that chance tonight here on a live call-in show on the Fairfax Sports Report, Wednesday, March 7th. We've got all the updated scores for the state basketball tournament. I just got back from there, as well as John Marcario here from the Connection newspapers and Paul Frummelt of the Connection newspapers. We're going to get you up to date on all of the regional action that we missed last week, and we're also going to take you through this state tournament, guys. All right, but before we do all that, let's thank the folks that make this show possible. Thanks to our teammates, CCI Screen Printing at 703-978-0257, and Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models at 703-383-6299. Well, guys, we missed an episode last week during the Northern Region Tournament, so we're going to get these folks at home up to speed. We're also going to take some calls here live Wednesday, March 7th on the Fairfax Sports Report. I am BJ Kubarulis of the Connection newspapers. Now get a pen and paper so you can write down this phone number that we're going to give you. Give you a second here. Get ready. All right, we're going to be live at 703-573-LIVE, 703-573-5483. We're going to give you folks at home the chance to call and pick our brains. We want to hear from you, the Northern Region sports fans. And guys, when you talk about Northern Region, let's jump right into the girls basketball action and show the folks at home exactly what happened in the brackets of the Northern Region to help some of these girls advance on to the state tournament. And when we're talking about the region tournament, we're talking about a thrilling finish in Edison and Oakton, an overtime game that I'm sure a lot of you callers are going to want to talk about. Oakton versus Edison. It was finally Jasmine versus Dorena. But when you backtrack a little bit there, Oakton had to get past Marshall, and Edison had to backtrack and get past T.C. Williams. And John, why don't you take us right into the Oakton-Marshall girls game, a game that you got a chance to see and witness.
Well, the Oakton-Marshall girls game, deceptively tough for the Cougars on their march to the state semifinals. In that game, Cougars had some problems containing the bigs of Maya Alshangeti and KT Message for the Statesmen. They were able to keep it close. Nicole Harrison, dynamite effort in her last high school game. She finished with 24 points, but Jasmine Thomas was just way too much. She ended up with 33 points, completely controlled the third and fourth quarter. By the end of it, it was just too much Jasmine, not enough Nicole, and they ended up pulling away.
Well, let's show the folks at home exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about this Oakton-Marshall matchup. We've got some numbers that we want to show these folks at home exactly what these girls did do in that Northern Region tournament game, Oakton versus Marshall. Oakton advanced to 26-2, and John, looking at that score and the high scorers.
There's the Oakton won it 56-45, kind of a deceptive score as it was nip and tuck for most of the game until the final 3 or 4 minutes. In it, as I mentioned, Jasmine Thomas, she finished with 33. Oakton at that time was 26-2. Marshall finished the year in a very successful 23-5 season. And as I mentioned, Nicole Harrison with her final college game had 24 points, just really tried her best to keep them in it at the end. Halftime score, Oakton 25-20. Up until that point, that was one of the tougher games Oakton had played throughout most of the year, as Jasmine Thomas usually doesn't get the opportunity to play late in games. She played late into that one. Statesmen put it out on the line. They just, over the last 3.5 minutes, scored 3 points. The Nicole Harrison 3-ball wasn't enough points at the end.
Well, if you want to talk about any of these games that we were at here with the Fairfax Sports Report, we got a chance to witness a lot of these games, Paul Frummelt as well. Give us a call, 703-573-LIVE, here Wednesday, March 7th. We're going to take the Northern Region sports fans' calls on anything and everything basketball or current sports right now. Paul Frummelt, speaking of current sports and teams that have made an impact, and we're going to get a chance to tell these folks exactly what Edison did do tonight at the state tournament. Let's talk a little bit about the Northern Region tournament and what they did against T.C. Williams.
Edison backtracking in the semifinals against T.C. Williams. It was kind of the Dorena Jasmine rematch in the finals. Kind of in the semifinals, she had a Tierra Ruffin-Pratt Dorena Campbell matchup, as Tierra Ruffin-Pratt, only a sophomore, looks to fill the shoes left by Dorena and Jasmine. Now, Edison obviously won the game 59-47, with Campbell scoring 20 and Ruffin-Pratt matching her with 20 points.
and we've got some numbers that we want to show the folks at home exactly from that game. If you guys want to talk about that game or any game here on the Fairfax Sports Report, you can call us at 703-573-LIVE. But let's get to those numbers. T.C. Williams and Edison girls, Paul. Here's the leaders.
You can see 59-47 in Edison's favor. With Edison, actually, if that's wrong, Edison is 28-1, with T.C. Williams being 19-7. Dorina Campbell scoring 20 points, and Tia Ruffin-Pratt scoring 20 points. At halftime, Edison had a 31-28 lead.
And you see Edison right there. We're going to get a chance to show you later in this broadcast exactly what Edison girls did today at the state tournament. We're going to get you up to speed on it. John, you got a chance to see Edison quite a bit, that T.C. Williams games. Would you consider that a scare, being that they only won it 59-47? I mean, they kind of steamrolled through this region.
Absolutely not. They were up 31-28 at the half. Second half, they just turned on the Jets and completely blew the Titans out of the water. Tia Ruffin-Pratt ended up with 20. Looks like a respectable game. Tia Spalding of Edison and Tamonica Brackens of Edison just locked her down. She earned those 20 points, took a lot of shots for those 20 points, just got very frustrated. Dorina Campbell with an efficient 20 points on the flip side. When her team needed a bucket, she got it. She wasn't there at all times to just take it, give me the ball, let me shoot. She was more dispersing it about. But just the second half of that game was all Edison all the time. No dream matchup there, not even a close contest.
All right, but there was a close contest in the northern region. And for those of you that were there and got a chance to see that, by the way, on demand on the Fairfax Sports Network, we're talking, of course, about the Edison-Oakton girls matchup in overtime at the Patriot Center. And let's show the folks at home some numbers on that game, guys. What an incredible thriller. You know, many people are talking about this game as potentially the best game that has ever been played in the northern region for hoops, boys or girls. Fred Priester said it tonight after his team's state semifinal game. We're going to give you the result on that, but let's look at this overtime game between Jasmine Thomas and Dorina Campbell. You see the numbers there. Jasmine with 25 points. Erin McGartland shot the lights out of the Patriot Center with 13 points. And you see Chastity Clayton had a great second half with 19 points. And there's Dorina Campbell, always steady with just about 20 a game, fills up the stat sheet in many other columns, but 19 points in that first matchup. It was the first time that these two girls ever played against each other on a high school court. Oakton took the lead at 28-22 into the half. Edison kind of stormed back late, and Oakton pretty much had the thing wrapped up in regulation, guys. Let's show the folks at home a highlight package from that game. We've got some highlights that we want to walk you through at home if you didn't happen to be there. Here's Jackie Shoemaker. A little runner, doesn't go, but there's Dorina Campbell, fouls Jackie late. A lot of people consider that a makeup call for Jasmine Thomas having fouled out a little bit earlier than that to put Tia Spalding on the line, who hit both. Here's the jump shot or the floater. There's the block. A lot of people thought it was clean, but that put Jackie Shoemaker in a situation all by herself on the free throw line, and in a full Patriot Center, it was completely quiet. You can see the lead there. Edison up 2. Jackie misses the first. A little bit tough to be put in that situation, guys, as a junior guard on a team that has really relied on a superstar in Jasmine Thomas. And here you are all by yourself, you know, a chance to either tie or win the ball game. And, just the shots won't drop for Jackie there. I got a chance to talk to Jackie this week following the state quarterfinal that they blew by Stonewall Jackson. And there's a story on it on connectionnewspapers.com if you'd like to read what Jackie had to say. But having talked to her, guys, she's really in good spirits about it. And you know what? I think a lot of people are of the opinion that that game should have been wrapped up in regulation.
It should have been wrapped up in regulation. If you have that 5-point lead really late, theoretically you should hang on. But you're facing an Edison team that is A, experienced, B, determined, and C, doesn't lose basketball games. To show you how special that Oakton team was that night, that is the only game Edison has played since late December that has been not decided by 10 points or less. When you have the beast down, you have to knock them out, bang out your free throws. You cannot let Edison hang around, because if you let them hang around, they will come back and nip you.
Speaking of hanging around, we hope that you folks at home want to hang out with us tonight. Give us a call at 703-573-LIVE. Again, we're live here Wednesday, March 7th. I want to take calls from viewers to talk all about Northern Region sports and hoops. And guys, before we get to any of our callers, though, let's talk a little bit about the state tournament. John and I just got back from that state tournament for watching our girls that did advance into that state tournament. Paul, why don't you walk us through the state tournament bracket?
Okay, obviously you guys just came back from the semifinals in the state tournament. Taking a look at the bracket, we have LC Bird and Heritage in the first round, with Heritage advancing. Edison took on Forest Park, and obviously Edison advanced. Hampton and Mills Godwin, and Hampton advanced there, and Oakton advancing past Stonewall Jackson. In the semifinals, Heritage took on Edison tonight, with Edison winning, and Hampton took on Oakton, with Oakton falling, so Edison the only team left in the Northern Region.
And, you know, guys, we wrote a preview story in the Connection newspapers earlier this season talking about how the girls of the Northern Region potentially could go further than the boys. For the boys, and we're going to get to the boys in the second half of this show for all you callers that want to call and talk about those boys, guys. Got a whole lot to say about T.C. Williams playing freedom and so forth. But we talked about how girls basketball had advanced in this area due to the good coaching, AAU, and several other factors. And I think that we see that with a girls team being the lone survivor into the state final at this point. Speaking of the state tournament, Paul, why don't you walk us through the key statistics for Oakton getting past Stonewall Jackson in the state quarterfinals, a game where Jasmine Thomas, again, a name we've mentioned a bunch tonight, and we'll continue to talk about her a little bit later when we talk about as what happened today in Richmond. Why don't we show the folks at home what happened when Oakton took on Stonewall Jackson?
Jasmine having another Jasmine-type performance with 26 points. Jackie Shoemaker coming back with 13. And obviously, you see there, Oakton cruising past Stonewall Jackson, 48 to 69. 69 to 48, obviously.
Right, and you see right there, Shoemaker with 13, bouncing back from that region tournament. Tough time that she had at the end there. Mandy Johnston had a pretty good game, 13 points as well. And Ashley Abed chipping in with 11 points. I think what was interesting here was that, you know, Jasmine had a triple-double, 26 points, 11 rebounds and 10 assists. But what was interesting about that game is that Oakton is often talked about, and Paul, you can speak to this effect because you got a chance to see them a bunch this year, how they're not just a one-man show with Jasmine. And I think that that game in the state tournament's first round proved it.
You can see that a lot of other people are chipping in for that team. Double-digit points. You mentioned up there. You saw Ashley Abel with 11 points. She's really a down post presence, and on defense especially too. Oakton plays a great aggressive defense, and that's run through Jasmine and Ashley Abed.
Well, let's run into a highlight package from this past weekend, guys, a game that we called on the Fairfax Sports Network. You can get that game on demand. Edison took on Forest Park, John, a game that you got a chance to write about. We were both there. Let's run through some of the highlights from that game. This was a really interesting game, but it kind of got boring down the stretch.
The girls, it must be fun to play on them, but for a reporter, they're getting very repetitive to cover because they win by so many points. They just completely dominated every aspect of this game. There you saw Maisha Goodwin filling in for the injured Shawnee Lewis. Had a nice little baseline jumper there. She had 6 steals in the game itself. Edison really did a good job with their full court press, caused much havoc for Forest Park, created 5 big turnovers in the first half during a spurt. Adria Crawford right there, 2 of her 13. She had the little stomach bug during the game, so nice effort, head coach Diane Lewis said afterwards. As you see, Edison just did a very good job methodically working the ball around, waiting to get the good shot. Chastity Clayton right there, who just had the ball, she had 15. Edison, as you're seeing right here, nobody really needs to be the superstar on that team. In this game, Dorena Campbell right there with 2 of her 31. She made the free throw right there. That was a season high for her. You see more full court press from Edison here, just trapping, swarming. Forest Park, they were just completely dumbfounded, didn't know what to do. Danny Jackson, their best player, held to 16 points. I say held as she averages 15, but that she just really struggled there, and there's the final horn.
Yeah, and that was Danny Jackson right there with the ball at the final horn. She's a girl, Paul, a small girl that really gets to the rim. She can penetrate really well. It was one of the keys for them to try to keep her out of the paint. She was really the only flare for a Forest Park team that was in the state finals last year. This was a rematch of the state finals. What's to say about revenge going into this game?
Well, definitely. I mean, Edison, not winning going as far as getting to a state title and not winning, it's got to eat on players that come back for the next year. It must have ate on those Eagles the entire year, and be able to get that rematch, be able to beat them, it's got to be a weight off their shoulders going into the finals.
Yeah, and it was a 1-point loss, so that kind of eats at you a little bit more. And And, you know, Forest Park was a team last year that has, and this year as well, that has been to the state tournament for the last 5 consecutive years. So they're a very seasoned team, but last year they had the talent to go with that. Monica Wright was just recently named the ACC Rookie of the Year. Okay, she's a girl that was on that team that led them to only a 1-point victory over Edison. John, Edison now in the state final again, and potentially from what a lot of people see in this team, they could be there again next year.
They return a lot of players. They're going to lose the Dorena Campbells. They're going to lose the Tia Spaldings. They're going to lose the Tamonica Brackens. But they return the big forwards inside in Chastity Clayton and Adria Crawford. Interesting enough, if you talk to head coach Diane Lewis, despite playing down low in high school, they're being recruited as guards. So they have that guard mentality, but when they stay on the blocks, they're really dominating in high school games. Maisha Goodwin coming on really strong for a freshman here down at the end. They should get Shawnee Lewis back, who's recovering from that concussion. They will be very talented again next year. Do not be fooled that this is just a Dorena Campbell team. And
you see the number right there. We're not just a team of guys that only wants to hear ourselves talk. We want to hear your opinion at 703-573-LIVE. Anything and everything Northern Region sports. But while we're on the topic, guys, we want to give a shout out to some of our new coverage areas and new areas that are tuning in to us on Verizon. When you're thinking about new areas, you're talking about Loudoun. You're talking about all the way upwards of Maryland. You're talking about Winchester. So some new areas.
We're taking over.
Excuse me.
He's all puffed up over all these new people that are watching the show.
Just give me 1 second.
It's a live show. Let's let it happen.
All right. Woo, tearing up over here, too. Well, I'm all choked up, I guess, about what was a great game today that we just witnessed. Edison, John, in your report, what did you see out of the Edison Eagles?
Edison played Heritage, and they jumped out to an 8-0 lead, let Heritage come back a little bit. They got within 3 or 4. And then all of a sudden, again, I say it all year long, that trademark switch. And then in the second quarter, bam, they were up 10, and then they were up 15, and then they were up 22. And by the fourth quarter, at one point, they were up by 25 points. They just destroy teams, and they don't do it in the I'm cocky, I'm going to destroy you. It's the press that gets to you. It's the big bodies down low that gets you. It's the 9-person bench that gets you. It's the Dorena shooting. It's Adria Crawford and it's Chastity Clayton down low. It's the defense that gets you. That team is the complete package. Heritage had no answers for anything. The score says 76-64. Do not be fooled that this was a close game. There's 21 free throws taken over the last 4 minutes of that game to keep it close. Edison and head coach Diane Lewis mentioned this after the game. They kind of lost interest and lose interest in parts of games this year because they're winning by so much. And they know that the outcome's already been decided. All we need to do is just flick on that switch.
All right, and we talked a little bit just now, John, your report from Richmond today. We're going to talk more about that, but before we get there, we want to talk about the Northern Region Final in Forest Park. We already showed you the highlights. Let's show you inside the numbers. Let's take you folks at home live here Wednesday, March 7th. We're going to take you inside the numbers. And you got any questions, give us a buzz. We'll walk you through it. Edison, though, a 69-54 victory over Forest Park. And let's show the folks at home there. 69-54, John. Dorena Campbell with 31.
That was the state quarterfinals held at Robinson. Dorena Campbell, as I mentioned, that was a season-high 31 points. Didn't miss many shots that night. Chastity Clayton, another solid game with 15 points. Adria Crawford, 13 points, playing with that sore stomach. Forest Park, who's played in 2 of the last 3 state title games, mind you, was led by sophomore Danny Jackson, 16 points, and Richardson, 16 points. Balanced scoring from those 2, not much from anybody else.
All right, so let's break into today's game, John. We're both down in Richmond. We got a chance to sit courtside with some of the players and talk to Coach Diane Lewis after, as you mentioned, what was already a victory. And Edison really went to work. You said it best. They kind of went to work early, got a lead, stuck with it. You know, Heritage did what it could to kind of rally. But I think the key numbers for people to really take note of is the rebounding actually was the same. 37-37 in rebounding. And when you look at Edison and their twin towers, as you mentioned in Adria Crawford and Chastity Clayton, and you throw some other pretty tall girls in there as well, I was a little bit, I guess if we're splitting hairs here on what Edison was able to do tonight in a victory, the rebounding maybe should have been a little bit more lopsided, wouldn't you think?
Not at all. I think that team in the second half knew that they had won, and if you look at the numbers, they didn't score as many points in the second half, missed a lot of more shots in the second half, kind of lost focus in the second half. If you have one concerning stat from the game, it's not the rebounding numbers that you're going to look at. It's going to be Crawford and Clayton were combined 8 of 30 from the field. Now, in the state finals, you cannot have those two go 8 of 30 and be able to win comfortably. It might be a little closer game. They might be able to pull it out, but 8 of 30 is not smart shooting. Just pull it back, work the ball around a little bit, or take better shots.
And speaking of shots, Edison was 3 of 7 from the three-point line. They shot 40% in the first half in field goal shooting, guys, and they finished the game at 40%. So it's a pretty good 40% from the field. Paul, when you look at a team like Edison, and you look at what they're able to do with all of their weapons and their guns, they really don't miss a beat when one player comes out. How do you coach against something like that, especially when a team comes out 3 of 7 from the three-point line? Darina Campbell today leads the scoring affair with 23 points. How do you game plan for a team with so many weapons?
You really can't, because say, obviously we're looking at Darina, a coach can say, let's double team Darina. That's going to leave somebody open who's more than able to drop 30 on you. So when you have a team that's so balanced like that, you can't focus on one aspect. You have to try to spread yourself thin pretty much, and it's not going to work with a team like Edison with so much talent.
And you look at the other side today, in Heritage, this is a team that shot 21 of 47 from the field, 44%, so they actually outshot them in their shot selection. I think Edison got caught in this lull, John, where they were up. You know, we talked about it with Coach Lewis after the game, and, you know, sometimes it's hard to stay focused when you're up so big, and they were up so big. And she kind of let them have it at the halftime if you took her tongue-in-cheek comments in our interview.
Yeah, she definitely said that. She told her players, you need to focus a little bit. You can't let this team back in there. But again, these are 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. When you look at the scoreboard and you see, my gosh, I'm up 18 points, it's hard to get through to them. But Edison in the state final looking for their first state title since 1978.
Wow. Well, 1 point shy last year, back-to-back Northern Region champions, and here they are, one game away, taking on what will be Hampton, a team that has posted a 26-2 record behind Coach David Six. They improved to 26-2 tonight, taking on Oakton. Oakton lost 55-44, and I think some of the key stats to share with you folks at home, Paul, Jasmine Thomas, 8 of 28 from the field today, and 0 for 7 from the three-point line. The team as a whole was 2 of 16 from the three-point line. And get this, folks, they shot 28% from the field on the night, 12% from behind the three-point line. Paul, you just can't win games like that.
When you look at someone like Jasmine Thomas, when maybe rightfully so, when she feels like the game's on her shoulders and Oakton starts getting down, she's going to start taking more shots. She's gonna start panicking a little bit and taking shots maybe she wouldn't take usually. Yeah. And when it starts snowballing, when it starts rolling, and you see the amount of shots she missed, that's going to be a problem late in the game. She's still a great player, obviously, but when she thinks that things are going wrong and she needs to do something fast, panic might set in, and that's what you can see with the shots there.
You know, I think that's a good point. I think that also, John, what we might have seen today out of her was that she really wanted it. And the whole team really wanted it. Hampton was just a better team. What Oakton was able to do was to stay alive in that game because she took over in the third quarter. All right, they were down 16-28 at the half. I want to say that's probably the biggest halftime deficit they've faced this year. They only lost one other game to Princess Anne early in the season in their December tournament. Jasmine came alive in the third quarter. She had 15 of Oakton's 18 points in a third quarter in which they outscored their opponent in Hampton 18-8. They brought it within 2, John, and they just could never close that gap.
Oakton was fine in that game so long as Jasmine Thomas was scoring points, but they couldn't get production from anybody else. In that third, they got within 2 because Jasmine demanded the ball. She wanted the ball. But over the last 6 minutes of the game in the fourth quarter, Jasmine didn't score a point. They just fell further and further far behind. Nobody picked up the shoe, said, okay, Jasmine's struggling right now. I need to make a shot or two here. That shot just never came. I had the feeling in that game when they cut it to 2 that, hey, they were down by so much. If they can tie it up, take the lead, they're going to pull away. this game will be theirs, and they just could never get to that point.
The only other Cougar in double figures scoring was Erin McGartland with 10 points. She's a girl, guys, that really lit it up in the Northern Region tournament, shot the lights out of the Patriot Center. A girl, I didn't even know she had that ability. She hasn't really shown it up until this point, really, guys. Looking at the rest of the Cougars' unofficial scoring, Ashley Abed with 7 points. Nicole Peters actually chipped in with 3, and Jackie Shoemaker with 2. So that leaves only 4 Cougars actually having scored, make that 5 Cougars scored on the night. Jasmine finishes with 22 points, 9 rebounds, guys, just shy of a double-double, 4 steals, 1 block, and 2 assists in 32 minutes. I mean, that's kind of trying to do it all, and she really has been able, I think, a testament to the Oakton squad and her abilities headed to Duke next year, where I think she'll shine. I think that, you know, she did all she could, and I talked to Coach Priester about that after the game. I said, do you feel like you guys overachieved just getting to this point? And I think he agreed with that point. I don't know if overachieved is the right word, but I think that just for this team to get this far is a testament to what they've been able to do there at Oakton. And then on the flip side, John, in an Edison squad, they're just loaded from top to bottom. We're going to talk more all about girls basketball on future episodes of the Fairfax Sports Report. But when we come back from this break, we're taking your calls. That's right. We know you want to talk about boys basketball here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Who won today? None of the Northern Region boys, because they're not in it anymore. But we're going to tell you why they're not in it. Come back and join us here after this break on the Fairfax Sports Report. Welcome back to this live edition of the Fairfax Sports Report. We are live here on Wednesday, March 7th, taking your calls from home. We're talking about Northern Region basketball and the state tournament, where none of our teams have advanced to, but we're going to tell you exactly why, guys. We're going to give you our expert analysis, and we're going to take your calls from home. What did you think about TC Williams boys? Should they have gone further? Give us a call and let us know. In this second half of the show, it's all boys basketball. And to get that kicked off, Paul Frummelt, we're jumping right into the Northern Region boys bracket, and you're going to walk us through that.
All right. Okay, so with the Northern Region boys bracket, which happened obviously before the state tournament, we're going to throw that up there in a second here. Well, we could. Well, obviously, as we know, TC did Wakefield versus West Springfield. We'll go with that. Wakefield winning 56-55. Wakefield 23-6 overall. Beal with 18 points. Johnson with 15. West Springfield at 20-7. Hall with 18 points. Kilday with 12. At halftime, West Springfield was winning 24-22.
And John Marcario, you were there covering this game, being on the beat all season for West Springfield. I know the Wakefield fans surely giving you some love. Because of your comments on this last show on the Fairfax Sports Report, you were a source of motivation for the Wakefield Warriors. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I might have picked the Spartans to win that game, and Tony Bentley, longtime viewer, thanks Tony, gave me kind of ribbing, but said thanks for very much, gave me some extra motivation. I'm going to now refer to Tony Bentley as the Tom Izzo of high school coaching, because he gets the job done.
Speaking of dropping names and getting the job done, we want to hear our caller's name. Caller, tell us what your name is and where you're from.
Hey, BJ, this is Johnny.
Big John Hollywood Thomas joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Johnny, I saw you in the stands watching Jasmine and Oakton. Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts were on the game. You are Jasmine's dad, John Thomas. Tell us a little bit of your thoughts on the game and what you thought Oakton was able to do in that game well.
Well, actually, I heard you guys talking about the shooting percentage and everything, and some of what he said about the taking bad shots that you normally wouldn't take was true, but a lot of probably the poor shooting also came from probably having to do everything in front of herself a little ragged. So a lot of the shots were coming up short. Mm-hmm. So that's a short tail sign of like being tired. I just want to say congratulations to all the girls at Oakton, because they really gave it a season, and I enjoyed watching it and everything. And the only thing that I really have go through here is like everybody wants to compare, say, who's the best player between this one and that one. And it's only one question that lies. If you take Jasmine off of that Oakton team and replace her with any other player in this area that you think is good as her, would they get that far? And you take her and put her on one of the teams that have all these weapons and just see how far they would get. So that's the only thing I pose to other people that always question how good she is or always want to put somebody up. She never, ever worries about it. She doesn't care about any of the individual accolades. All she wants to do is win with her team. And that's all I really wanted to say to you guys.
Hey, John, we certainly appreciate the call, and you guys have been you've meant a lot to Oakton High School over the last 4 years and to Northern Region basketball. I know you're Jasmine's biggest fan, and we certainly appreciate you calling in and dropping some knowledge on us. You know we're going to keep seeing you out there, right?
Well, you know that.
Hey, have fun driving down to Duke next year. That's going to be interesting. We'll be watching her on TV.
All right, thanks a lot, B.
All right, thanks, big man. All right, so you know, good point there. I think that when you talk about some of the weapons that some other teams had this year, and you place and you kind of maybe make your own all-star team and put some other players in other situations, I think you always have some room for development and improvement. And speaking of improvement, let's get to our next caller. Caller, let's hear your name and where you're from.
My name's Dylan.
Dylan, where are you from, man?
Herndon, Virginia.
Oh, big Dylan from the home of the Hornets in the Hornets' nest. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the Herndon boys this year. I'm guessing that might be why you're calling.
We did good, but Wakefield was a tough team.
Well, Dylan, tell me a little bit about what you have on your mind. Ask me a question. Ask any of us a question here. I know that Herndon-Wakefield was a tough game. And Dylan, tell me who your favorite player is in the Northern Region as well.
I would really like to call to ask you guys about Coach Hall leaving.
Okay.
Because I don't know what 210. 210 is going to be a great year, I think, because all the boys will be good. So.
Well, Dylan, thanks for the question from Herndon, Virginia. Dylan wants to know, Coach Hall, Gary Hall, over at Herndon, after 18 seasons, steps down, and that's a coach that has been around and meant a lot to this Northern Region. Coached Scotty Reynolds. Many of you know that name now. Big East Rookie of the Year, named that today. Had 29 points, leading Villanova past Syracuse and taking that team basically, John, into an NCAA bid lock, we believe. But Gary Hall coached his team to the Northern Region tournament, the first one in 18 years for him, 6 Concord District titles, steps down. I got a chance to talk to him about that. It was time for family for Coach Hall, getting married coming up soon this summer. He's got 2 daughters that are going to be playing out in Loudon. Want to say hi to our new Loudon viewers, Paul, at the Briar Woods school that you cover. Talk a little bit about that squad.
What's impressive about Briar Woods, I get to talk about Loudon, this is great. What's impressive about Briar Woods is they're so young, even on the varsity squad. They have, I believe, 2 to 3 freshmen on the varsity squad. Hall's daughters are on the freshman squad, so they are a young team coming up. Obviously, with Briar Woods and Freedom, both 2 new high schools in the Loudon area, both girls' basketball teams are doing quite well, and that Dulles district it's not top-heavy anymore. Everybody's pushing towards the middle.
You're so
excited.
I
love talking about Loudon.
He's so excited to talk about Loudon, and we may be bringing you more of that, folks, out there in the Loudon area since you are some of our new viewers. But when you talk about Gary Hall, he's a guy that's meant a lot to the Northern Region. He coached them to 6 district titles in one of the toughest places to play in the Hornets' Nest in Herndon. Dylan let us know, and 210, those teams may be good because you're always thinking about development in the next step. I think that Danny Jones, Richard Gore, C.J. Glenn, all those first-team selections in the district this year, and a team that won its 6th district title, I think that this was kind of the year where they lose a lot. I think that whoever takes over that program will have a tough road ahead, but not for too long, because Herndon always seems to replenish pretty well, as does South Lakes, a place that also is missing its coach for the first time in 23 seasons, Wendell Bird retiring after the end of this season. So it really seems like 2 of the best jobs, John, in the Northern Region are open.
You got sexy jobs open. Herndon, Herndon, South Lakes. They're going to be interesting to see who comes and fills them. Interesting side note on another coaching situation. I talked with the Edison DSA. He said that head coach Franklin McMillan, according to him, will be coming back next season.
And there was some doubt whether Edison's Coach would be coming back after this season. Edison dropped in the tournament. And, John, you got a chance to talk to Coach McMillan after that loss.
Coach McMillan, just after that loss, kind of questioned whether when the player development process would start for next year, if he was going to come back for next year. He's been there for 2 seasons now, came from a storied tradition from a school down in Richmond. It's sometimes the emotions kind of boil over when you lose a tough game at home, favored to win. Looks like cooler heads did prevail, though. He's a solid coach. It's good for the Northern region that he could possibly, looks like, sticking around.
And speaking of the Northern region, we've got some more action from this past Northern region tournament as we walk through what has happened over the last several days. We were at TC Freedom, and we're going to talk about that game. And I think there's a lot of viewers that want to talk about what they saw on that court out of the TC Williams Titans. But before we show you what they did later in the state tournament, Paul, let's talk a little bit about what they did against Chantilly in the Northern region tournament. And we have some numbers that we want to show the folks at home up on this screen that they can look at for that game and some of the top performers.
It's something that's very telling when you look at Chantilly, the team that's pretty much led by Ben Wheeler and up-and-coming and sophomore Justin May. They're obviously a team that didn't have the physical talent of TC Williams. As you can see here, TC did win the game 63-50 with TC obviously 26-3, Chantilly 15-10. Like I said, Wheeler with 18 points, May with 15. For TC, Andrews had 19 points, and Davis with 17. At halftime, here's what you need to look at. At halftime, Chantilly was winning 30-26. In the third quarter, Chantilly went on a run led by Ben Wheeler and Justin May, where they shot lights out, had all the momentum. Kind of shocked TC Williams, who's had such an easy time in the Northern region in the last couple of regular seasons. Go ahead.
And what folks at home should really look at there is Glenn Andrews. Here's a guy, 19 points. He had a standout game in the state quarterfinals. And I know there's some folks at home that want to talk all about those TC Titans and their expectations and did they fall short? Should they have gone a little bit further? Give us a call here on this Wednesday, March 7th, live edition of the Fairfax Sports Report. There's the number right here, right underneath me at 703-573-LIVE. And for those of you that don't know how to use a phone, that's 573-5483, guys. Okay, let's jump right into this TC Williams Wakefield report as we approach the state tournament and what TC Williams was able to do in that tournament. John, let's talk a little bit about Wakefield taking on TC.
In that game, it was too much Mike Davis, not enough Johnson for Wakefield. TC ended up winning the game by 10, 75-65. There you see Mike Davis, who was named the regional tournament MVP, finished with 22 points. Glenn Big Game Andrews had 14 for Wakefield. Ty Beal, Coach Tom Izzo, a.k.a. Tony Bentley, said he played like a lion out there, finished with 18. Brandon Allen had 16. He kind of penetrated or brought Mike Davis out, penetrated in. That was effective there in the second half. If you see there, George Johnson only finished with 7 points, was A, plagued by fouls, first time all season. He had been that, fouled out for the first time all year, and B, he's had a finger injury that he suffered in the semifinal win over West Springfield. He thought it might be broken. Head coach Tony Bentley was a little unsure whether it was broken or not, severely injured though. At halftime, you see it was pretty close, 41-38, but TC has that little Edison switch, though not as good as Edison switch, and they just flicked it on there in the second half, and they just pretty much rolled.
All right, and speaking of a team that just rolled, we thought that the TC Williams boys would be the first team in 26 years to win a state title from the Northern region. It's been that long, folks, 26 years. There has not been a team since Lee that won a state title 26 years ago, John, and this was a team that even on this show and in several things that we wrote at the Connection newspapers, we thought this would be the team that would break that spell. Let's show you what TC Williams did in the state tournament. In a bracket format, we show the folks at home exactly what the Titans did and exactly where they fell. You see them right there in the first round. This is a team that we thought would make it all the way to the finals, and you see live Wednesday, March 7th, the updated bracket. Highland Springs gets past Cameron Long and Freedom as GW Danville edges Booker T. Washington in a physical game all the way to the end there, and those two will be taking on each other. So no one from the Northern region, even in the semifinals, guys, and that usually we've done a lot better than Northern region when I say we in the state tournament. TC Williams fell to Freedom. Paul, you're going to run us through a graphic here that tells us who is Freedom, a team right in our backyard, and you're going to walk us through some stats on exactly what Freedom was able to do to beat those Titans.
Well, Freedom High School, here you go. Here they won by 10 points, 80-70 over TC Williams. Here's a little bit about Freedom Woodbridge. The record 21-5 this year. Their coach Ahmad Dorset is in his third year. His overall record and the program's overall record is 39-36. The team is led by Cameron Long, who just signed with GMU, a great pickup for the Patriots. Like I said, the program is only 3 years old, and Cameron Long, a big fans from BJ and John there. And Freedom Long had 24 points. Hayes added 15 for Freedom. TC Williams, Andrews, 31 points. Davis, 15 points.
All right, and you mentioned some fans here. We are fans of Cameron Long, John and I having gone to George Mason. And speaking of fans, let's talk to one of our fans on the phone here. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, BJ, it's Johnny again.
Big JT.
I just wanted to weigh in on the boys things. You can check this out. I'm not really sure, but I know that in this area, you're not allowed in the off season to coach more than 4 of your players from your high school.
Right.
But when you travel to other areas of Virginia, you're allowed to only just not have one player. So you can just switch your worst player with another team's worst player, and you're allowed to coach these players all year round. And of course, when it comes down to the boys, it's a lot tougher if you're coaching them all year round,
right,
and they're ready to go right into the season and don't lose the beat. But up here, you have to get the other players back on that same page. So I think that may have a big, may be one of the major contributors to why the boys haven't won a state championship from up here.
Dropping some more knowledge on us is Johnny Hollywood Thomas. Thanks for the call, man. Hey, chime in anytime. We might as well just bring you on this set.
You can sit in my seat. I mean,
yeah,
I'm
you
not
do
really
need
doing
to
much
add
with
me
it.
on the show, man.
We're going to get you as our expert analyst. Hey, John, thanks for the call. Look,
All right,
he's got a great point, I think, because, I talked to some coaches about this when I talked about, and many of our viewers at home may remember this story, we talked about coaches maybe being able to coach before school or after school and when they were going to lock in the times as to when they could coach. Some of these other regions, if you tried to lock that gym up, you're going to have a riot on your hands with some of these kids from down south, which pretty much, and from the Richmond and Central area, where pretty much, if they're not in a gym, they might be getting in trouble. And I think that you don't find that up here because up here it's a different kind of culture. But year-round basketball is something that the rest of the state does get a chance to really engage in. I know the rules are kind of a bit different in every region, but there are some there are some state rules as well. But you think about an interesting point there. A lot of coaches up here to remedy that, what they do is they coach each other's AAU teams. And I think, Paul, AAU has been such a big focus for these kids in developing them in the offseason.
It definitely is for up here in Northern Virginia. But you can see that how if you have a coach who can coach his main squad all year round with pretty much no downtime jumping right into the season, that definitely hurts the Northern Region teams when it has all the other regions have a leg up on them.
And speaking of leg up, let's focus back on, John, you're shaking your head over there. What's going on? You don't agree with that point?
I call that, and I had a lot of respect for Coach Ivan Thomas at TC. They were a great team, but for this specific TC in this specific situation, I refer to that as excuses, excuses, excuses. There is no way that TC team should have lost that basketball game to a Freedom team playing at Robinson, which was 90% TC fans. TC was way taller, way more athletic. No offense to Cameron Long, great player, but that was Freedom's main player. TC had 2 to 3 legit D1 players, and they did not come out the way TC should have come out in that game.
And you speak about that, and I wrote an article about Mr. Davis, Mike Davis, the Patriot District's co-player of the year, and then the Northern Region's player of the year. And having talked to TC coach Ivan Thomas, his big point about Davis, who transferred from Hayfield to TC, was that he plays a lot harder this year. I see that in the state quarterfinal in front of the big crowd. I don't know if that was on display. I don't want to take any shots here because I think Mike Davis is an excellent player who's going to be going to the next level and could have potentially a good career. I just don't know if that point that Coach Thomas made so many times about Mike turning a new leaf and playing hard. I don't know if it was displayed on that stage. I know it was displayed earlier in the season and in other formats. I know Glenn Andrews, though, threw down a dunk, John, that was thunderous. This is a guy with over 30 points in this game. What did you like out of Glenn Andrews?
Glenn, big game Andrews, finished with 31, had 18 in the third quarter, threw down a monster dunk in that third quarter. Highlight reel, went up with one hand, kept his team in there, lost, just got completely tired in the fourth quarter. But getting back to what you said about Mike Davis, the epitome of that basketball game, Freedom was up 6. Cameron Long had a little opening down the lane, drove from the top of the key, basically stuffed it over Mike Davis, who A, leads the region in blocks, B, dominating post player, C, anybody in this area just usually is scared to go against him. 6'5", Cameron Long went up and posterized them. The place went crazy. Posterize, it's a harsh word to use, but there's really no other word not to describe it. It was a big dunk.
Mike Davis has posterized several people this year with a game which he had 15 blocks in one game. He's had incredible dunks. I hear rumors that they threw an alley-oop in one game in the region tournament. So that is quite a talented team, and I think that, John, you got a chance to interview Coach Ivan Thomas after the game. Was there a sense of disappointment that they really maybe didn't capitalize on an opportunity in a year like this that doesn't come around too often?
At the end, he said it was a successful season. They were undefeated in district play, won the district tournament, won the regional tournament, so he didn't say that, but you can just look at his face and see the disappointment that he had. He looked a little red-eyed. He just knew that this was a talented TC team. They graduated a lot of players next year. I don't think they're going to be quite the same group of players. Every good team has a window. Last year was Herndon's window. They advanced to the state final. This year is TC's window, and they just couldn't get it done. It's hard for a coach because they put in so many hours for little pay, and it's tough when their team loses, and especially at a school like TC when you're supposed to be getting farther.
All right, you mentioned putting in a lot of hours. We certainly put in a lot of hours, but we've only got a couple minutes left here on the Fairfax Sports Report to take your calls. So the clock is ticking. Again, that number is 703-573-LIVE or 5483. So 703-573-LIVE, guys. Give us a call. Do you think TC blew an opportunity? Do you think this should have been their year? We'll never know, but you may have an opinion about it. Give us a call and let us know what you think. Let's move into a little bit of Wakefield, John, because this is a team that was vying for its third region title. We talked about the region championship game where they took on TC Williams. Of course, both of them advanced, and Wakefield took on a team very difficult in the first round. Let's show the folks at home exactly what happened to Wakefield in the first round in a game that looks like it got out of hand.
Wakefield just ran into a buzzsaw GW Danville team. They lost 83-64. Second quarter, they lost their leading player, leading man, George Johnson. He suffered a knee injury, did not return, already came into the game with a finger injury. It's hard to take out your Michael Jordan and expect to compete in a state quarterfinal game on the road facing the #1 team in the state. For Wakefield, Beal, another monster game for the senior, finished with 29. As you see there, Johnson had 7 points before he left early in the second quarter. Do not let this score indicate a bad season or a disappointing loss. Tony Bentley was ecstatic after winning his semifinal game. He's just leading this group of players to the state tournament again for the second time in 3 years is a massive accomplishment for that program.
John, Ty Beal, 29 points, also had a monster performance in the Northern Region tournament. Is that a Division I player? He's a little bit on the shorter side, I guess I'd say. Is he a Division I player? I seem to think he is.
Ty Beal is, as you said, a little on the shorter side. He can shoot, and he's got a heart. And I will always take a kid that shoots and has a heart and cares about playing. He lays it out every single game. It can be a Tuesday night playing a random team in a random location. He'll play exactly like he played the last 2 games. That is what the heart of a Lion is, like head coach Tony Bentley is. I would want him on my college team.
Boy, those Warriors really got to you there, didn't they? Boy, they really got. Okay, Paul, go ahead.
I don't have a phone, but I'd like to call in and ask a question to the experts. One thing that noticing that both of our Northern Region teams dropped in the first round of the state tournament, and seeing the dominance that TC Williams had in the Northern Region this year, do you think that the schedule they played in the Northern Region prepared them to play other teams in Virginia? Do you think Northern Region has been down and TC didn't get enough playing enough elite teams to prepare themselves for the state tournament?
I think that maybe that's not a question. I think that's a point, and I think it's a good point.
Okay.
I think that, this is a tough area. The Patriot District is a district that they've run the table in for the last 3 years and really have been untouched in the northern region in a long-going streak, over 30 games. Caller, where are you from? What's your name?
Yeah, Scott from Fairfax.
Scott, how you doing, buddy? What do you got for us?
Just a couple comments on the TC team. I saw them play probably 4 or 5 times this year. And the team is obviously very quick and very athletic. But I saw the teams that could match that, typically that could play a disciplined type of basketball, would take those kids out of their game. And there was nobody in the northern region who could do it, and I didn't see the freedom game. But I've seen other games where teams that have more athletic ability but tend to play a little more street ball and less discipline get taken out of their game when they match up with the team that does that.
Scott, hang on the phone with us for just a minute because I think you make an interesting point. Did you happen to see the Lake Braddock game when TC played them at Lake Braddock in this?
I did not see that. That's
exactly a point. The exact point you're making is exactly what happened at Lake Braddock. Now, obviously, Scott, thanks for the call, by the way. They won that game. TC Williams, John, won that game. You and I were both at that game, and that's a game that was on the Fairfax Sports Network as well. That's a game right there that's a perfect example of what Scott from Fairfax said, okay? Lake Braddock brought the guys out to the half court. They ran the four corner stuff. They slowed the ball down, and TC Williams really didn't know what to do. I think maybe in this case, though, in the game we saw on Saturday, I don't think that the team Freedom was more disciplined. I think that they had some guys that got in there and just hustled.
They out-rebounded TC with a pair of forwards that were 6'5" and maybe 6'6", 6'7". One of their forwards, who was 6'5", came into the game averaging 4 points and 4 rebounds and finished with 18 points and 17 rebounds. And he's 6'5".
You see, he can match their athleticism. And then one comment on the big kid, and I saw him play. I saw the game, the Lake Braddock game on your television. I mean, on the televised, but I didn't see it live. But the big kid, I also found him to be he would lose interest late in games, and most of the times they're up by 50, 60 points, and so I can see that happening. But I did not see him play a full 4 quarters, and maybe because in many cases they'd taken him out early. But late in games, I don't know if he was tired or just had lost interest, but I didn't see the effort in the second half in several of the games that I would have thought would come out of a play with his skill set.
Scott, thanks a lot for the call, and keep watching.
I do. I watch you guys every week.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Thanks.
As we're going to take one more call before we get going here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Caller, are you there? All right.
Call back quickly.
I can actually touch on what the caller was talking about Mike Davis. It does seem, obviously, when he's playing at 100%, he is amazing to watch. I have noticed, as the caller said, that the game I saw with TC playing against Chantilly is at some point he does seem to lose interest, maybe because TC is so good and they're winning by so much.
He's a good player. Caller, where are you from and what's your name?
This is Joe from Fairfax Station.
Joe from Fairfax Station. What do you got for us, buddy?
Well, I wanted to agree a little bit with that last caller and also make the comment that, I was at that state quarterfinal game, and what it appeared to me is TC is great when they have the opportunity to run, but they had absolutely no half-court offense, and, they were always constantly looking to run, and they weren't boxing out, and Freedom crashed the boards, got a lot of easy baskets, and basically took TC out of the game. And it seemed like Davis in particular had a hard time keeping his head in the game. I saw him walking up court a couple of times where it appeared he got easily demoralized. And so I think the little bit of lack of discipline and the one dimension that TC had, which was relying highly on that athleticism that they have and the height that they had. If they got taken out of that a little bit and they went down and had to settle into a half-court offense, they had no answer. They didn't know what to do.
Big Joe from Fairfax Station. I think you make some key points. Thanks for watching. Keep watching every week on the Fairfax Sports Report. Guys, Joe makes an interesting point. First of all, though, I don't want to get too far down the road of jumping on Mike Davis here either before we get going with just about a minute left in the broadcast. I think Mike Davis is an excellent player. I think that a lot of people who saw only one game might take that to be what he is as a player. And I've seen Mike Davis play lights out several times this year. I think on the big stage, though, is where a lot of people form their opinions. I do want to say that I think Mike Davis has an excellent future. I think T.C. Williams has an excellent future. Paul, before we get going, what's up?
When you're that good as Mike Davis is, people want to nitpick. People want to push you down. They're going to notice things more when you're a star player like that.
Speaking of stars, John, closing thoughts.
I also want to say the same thing. Mike Davis, I'm not trying to bash you. Great player, great talent, some little fixable things to work on, but definitely I think worthy of the player of the year. Real quick note, Edison will roll in the state title.
All right, guys, let's get to our underwriters real quick before we get going. All right, FSN Game of the Week, Girls Basketball State Championship, coming right up. Visit the website for more details. Hey, CCI Screen Printing, one of our teammates at 703-978-0257 for all your screen printing needs. And Quality Care Ford Service Center, servicing all makes and models at 703-383-6299. Thanks to all of our teammates. You guys, you're my teammates.